When he came, the Messiah made the promise of a kingdom, a new world, rich, peaceful, unpolluted, joyful for all. What leads to that kingdom? What precedes its arrival? Do you want to be part of it? Are you ready for the promise? Mayong buntag, dear listener. Thank you for tuning in on the Radio Archive for the show The Promise. Really thank you everyone in Tagum, Digos, Marita, other places that I don't know always the places where people are listening from. But thank you to all of you for tuning in. I know there are people, of course, in Davao City itself, like in Cabantian and other places. So thank you to all of you for listening to me. To what I share with you. I hope it's not too complicated. I just try to give you clues so that you on your side can learn deeper, go deeper into under the surface of what the scriptures is teaching you. What seems evident sometimes is hiding something which is deeper. So the whole point of what I'm sharing is really about you doing your part and going deeper into the search of truth. Remember, a shepherd, an elder, an evangelist, a pastor, whatever you call it, are there to lead you on green pasture. But you are the one eating the green pasture. The shepherd is not there to eat the grass for the sheep. The sheep are there to eat the grass. The shepherd is there to lead the sheep. So that's what I'm trying here to do by leading people toward the truth, toward the thing that I'm teaching. And just showing you that there is more than what you can read just by skipping around the scriptures. There are deeper things behind the words that Yahweh gave us. So really, that's the whole point. So I would like to continue about the topic of last week. You remember we are still in the Noah part. And if you remember, when 3 weeks ago I told you that all the stories of the patriarchs, every patriarchs play a role, like in a movie, like in a play. They play a role. Besides what they are themselves, without knowing it, Yahweh made them play a role, and that role is about the plan of salvation that He has for us. You have also the level of prophecy. So the patriarchs also prophesy about something without knowing it. Most of those people did not even know that they were used by Yahweh to play a role, to teach deeper things as prophetical things, etc., for the later days, for us. Everything which happened to us is there to teach us something, us today in those last days. So it's really important. Remember that Yahweh says, Yahweh revealed the latter days, in the beginning, in Bereshit. So it's literal. You have to take that literally also, not just as an allegory. It's literal. So if you want to read about the end, go first to the beginning, understand the patriarch story. Okay? So you have many levels. I just choose in this time, to speak about the level of salvation, because everything begins with that salvation. And in the first and second show, we spoke about Adam, because Adam is the beginning of the fall, in a sense, the beginning of the sin upon mankind. And since that happened, Yahweh had to do something about it. And He wanted to do something about it. And that's where the story of Noah comes in. Noah is an example of what salvation is all about. And through the story of Noah played the role of what it is to be saved. So Yahweh teach us about salvation through Noah story. Okay, and that's all the things about work, grace, salvation. Remember everything we saw until now. So remember, the same as us, Noah was saved of the past by grace. Okay, he was saved by the old generation through grace, because he found grace in the eyes of Yahweh. But once he found grace, then he had to do something in the present for himself, in his own present, to save himself and his family. How did he do it? By doing something. He had to work. Remember the work in Hebrew as well as in Greek. The word work is something which is a general term. It can apply to everything. It can apply to making sacrifices, making this, making that. The notion is always about what you do. Right or wrong, that's what the work is in Greek or in Hebrew. It's what you do, simply what you do, an action. Okay, so he had to do something. Noah had to do something. So he had to work for his own salvation, the same way as us. We have to do something now for our own salvation. We have been saved, like Noah, by grace of our past, through faith. Like Noah, Noah was saved from the past generation to cross to the new generation, and he was the seed of the new generation. But then to go across, to go on the other side, he had to build a boat. The whole image of the ark is about someone which is saved, and the ark is there to cross over to reach the other side, the side where he will be definitively saved. Okay, keep that image in mind because it's all about that salvation. But Noah had to follow the instructions of Yahweh. Noah had to build a boat to save himself and his family. He had to do something the same way we are building our own ark. Remember, think about that. The boat is there to protect us from the storm, is there to protect us from the sea. And the sea is often an image of the nations, the Gentile nations, the wicked nations. It's an image of wickedness. The believer is called out to go on the other side. What is the other side? For us, the other side is the kingdom of Yahweh. But before we reach the kingdom of Yahweh, we have to cross over. We have to live in the life of in the world. And the world is like the sea. So we have to build our ark to be able to cross on the other side. And it is interesting that Yahweh is the one giving the instructions of the boat. Well, the same way, if we want to reach the kingdom of Yahweh, we have no other choice. We have to obey Him. And obedience to what? Well, to what is the word of Yahweh? The word of Yahweh is what we call the Torah. Torah does not mean law. Torah means instructions. It is the instructions of a father to the children of what they are supposed to do to succeed in life. That's what Torah, the deepest meaning of Torah means. Literally, in fact, Torah means to reach a target. Like an arc, a bow. So you have to reach a target. Okay? But to reach a target, you have to follow instructions. Instructions are given by the Torah. So the same way as Noah had to build the ark, to be saved, he shall be saved once he will be on the other side of the flood. But until then, he will have to live on the flood, on the water. He have no choice, he have to. Okay? The water is there, death is under the water, etc. He is above it, but he is protected by the ark from the storm around him, all the pressure. And yes, of course, he is agitated in the boat, but he is saved as long as he says in the boat. The boat has been given by Yahweh. Yahweh gave him the plan and the instructions to build the boat. So the same way for us, if you follow the instructions, the Torah of Yahweh, and I'm not speaking about the sacrificial system here, I'm speaking about the moral law, the penal law, things like that, like thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not lie, and things like that. Those are the kind of instructions, the righteousness. Yahweh is the one giving us the instructions. Those instructions, if we follow them, act like the ark for Noah. They protect us as long as we stay in the Torah, in those instructions. As long as we stay in the word of Yahweh, we are protected from every side. We will be agitated, we will be under pressure, the storms will go around us. Yes, of course. But still we'll be able to cross over. And if we do what Yahweh asks us to do without going outside that kind of ark, in bracket, we'll be able to reach on the other side of the flood, the other side of the world of man. Because the time comes that Yahshua will come back and he will launch the kingdom of Yahweh. And that's what we have to reach. But until then, we have to stay in the ark of the Torah. Okay, in the ark of the covenant, if you prefer. Okay, but we saw something important. We have been saved, past tense, of our past life. Okay, so it's through the grace of Yahweh. It is a grace, something we cannot do anything. It is Yahweh who decided to forgive us from our past life and to show us grace. So He does not account to us the sin we have done. But this is done through the sacrifice of Yeshua, through His death. As long as we stay in Yeshua, we are protected from our past. Because remember, the condemnation on mankind is still there. The shield is the grace of Yahweh through Yeshua. That's the shield. But if we go outside, like Noah, if Noah went out of the boat, he will drown. The same way, if we go out of our own ark of the covenant, in a sense, to keep an image, we will drown. Okay? So we stay in the boat. We stay in the ark. We stay in Yeshua. We stay in the truth. Okay? So as long as we do that, no problem. But once the reset button has been pushed, once our past life has been forgiven, as long as we stay in the grace of Yahweh, We are far from the condemnation of death. Okay? So, once that is done, we walk in newness of life. We are a new man. We are born again, but careful, we are born again in Yeshua. But we don't see yet that we are born again. We shall see it when Yeshua comes back. As long as he's not there, we will not see it yet. We are born again in faith. But we already have to walk according to that newness of life. We are a new man. We are a new woman. We have to walk in the newness of life. So in a sense, the grace of Yahweh is a reset button, putting our life to zero. From that time on, we have something to do. That's where work comes in. But again, define clearly what works are is the righteousness. We have to work righteousness. In other words, we have to walk according to what Yeshua walk. Walk in righteousness. Thou shalt love thy neighbor like thyself. Thou shalt love thy Yahweh, thy Elohim, with all your strength, with all your mind, with all your heart, etc., etc. That's the righteousness of Yahweh. Through Yeshua, we have to obey that. That's something we have to do now. And that's what working to your own salvation is what you do. But that's something you have to do. I have to do. We have to work for our own salvation. We have to. It's biblical. The law has not been done away with. Not far from it. We have, on the contrary, the law is there to define what sin is all about and what we have to avoid. So to stay righteous. By definition, you cannot abide by righteousness if you don't have the law defining what righteousness is. Okay? So you have to abide by the instructions of Yahweh. That's what works is all about. So when you work to your own salvation in the present, that's what you do. You work righteousness. You work according to righteousness. You apply the instructions of Yahweh, your Father, so you can reach the kingdom. Then you shall be saved definitively. That will be the result of your work. Okay? But the words of Yahweh are what we have to follow. Okay, let's continue. So in the present life, we walk in belief and have works to accomplish. Those are the work of righteousness. Or in other words, we work to our salvation now, and that's our job. So it's important to keep that in mind. It is our job. And I will read again, Philippians chapter 2, verse 12 to 13. So Philippians chapter 2, verse 12 to 13. Just to underline that I'm not the one saying it. So that my beloved, as you always obeyed. So you have to obey. Not only in my presence, but now much rather in my absence. Work out your own deliverance or salvation. It's the same word. With fear and trembling. For it is Elohim who is working in you both the desire to work for his good pleasure. So Yahweh is giving you the strength to do it. But you have to work for your own salvation with the help of Elohim. But that's what you have to do now. Okay, in the process of repentance. So it's important. So in our present life, it is a necessity to work for our salvation. Elohim will not do it for us. His gift of grace was about our past life. It is not about our present life. So we know about the past, okay, the present, but what about the future life? After all, we spoke a lot about the past, the present, so what about the future? Well, let's see in Romans chapter 5, verse 8 to 9. But Elohim proves his own love for us in that while we were still sinners, Messiah died for us. Much more then, having now been declared right by his blood, we shall be saved from wrath through him. Okay, I will repeat again. We shall be saved from wrath through him. We shall be. That's future tense. Future. It's not the present and the past anymore. That's future. Okay? Well, if we shall be saved from Yahweh's wrath, how is the wrath of Yahweh upon us in the first place? Think about that one. Ephesians chapter 2, verse 1 to 3. And you were, past tense, dead in trespass and sins in which you once walked, past tense, according to the course of this world. Okay? That's what we did in the past. According to the ruler of the authority of the air, of the spirit that is now working in the sons of disobedience. So, I will stop here a minute. It says, you were dead in trespass. You once walked, past tense, according to the spirit which is now working in the sons of disobedience, among whom also we all once lived in the lust of our flesh in the past, doing the desire of the flesh and of the mind, and were past by nature children of wrath, as also the rest. So, in the present, the spirit of disobedience, the authority of the air, is still there, working in the sons of disobedience, still there, in the present tense. But we were there in the past. Okay? And that's where we were. We were under the wrath in the past because we did not obey Yahweh. We obey the one rebelling about against Yahweh. We were disobedient to Yahweh, so we were children of wrath. That's where the wrath of Yahweh was above us. But since grace, we have been saved from our past through grace. Now we are protected from the past. But in the present, we have to work our own salvation. But the wrath of Yahweh is still there above mankind. Remember, is the present here. The wrath of Yahweh is still above mankind because mankind is still disobedient to Yahweh. We are the exception. Think about it. We are the exception to the rule. The rule of the world is disobey Yahweh. We are the exception of the rule. We obey Yahweh. So in the present, we obey Yahweh already. The Gentiles live in disobedience to Yahweh. They adore other deities, idols, you name it. So we are the exception. We were like that in the past. Now we have been saved through grace, and now we live in Yeshua. We work to our own salvation. Now, and we shall be saved from that, because the mind of the flesh is enmity towards. Now, I would like to go to Romans chapter 8, verse 7, 8. So Romans chapter 8, verse 7 to 8. Because the mind of the flesh is enmity towards Elohim, for it does not subject itself to the Torah of Elohim, neither indeed is it able. And those who are in the flesh are unable to please Elohim. That's what the children of disobedience are. They walk according to the flesh. So it's Romans chapter 8, verse 7 to 8. So again, I will repeat. Because the mind of the flesh, so it's not the mind of Yahweh, it's the mind of the flesh, what we are made of, is enmity towards Elohim. For it does not subject itself to the Torah of Elohim, neither indeed is it able. And those who are in the flesh are unable to please Elohim. So you have no choice. Either you are for Elohim or against Elohim, but you cannot be in the middle. When we are enemies of Yahweh, when are we children of wrath, sons of disobedience? Well, so I repeat the question. When are we enemies of Yahweh? When are we children of wrath? When are we sons of disobedience? Well, the answer is when we walk according to the flesh. So why is the mind of the flesh enmity to Yahweh? We read it because it disobeyed Torah. It disobeyed the words of Yahweh. And we saw that it's important to obey the word of Yahweh to be saved. See the difference? Romans chapter 8, verse 9. You will hear me quote many verses today, by the way. Romans chapter 8, verse 9. But you is speaking now. You is the believer. Now those who are part of the assembly, the saints. But you are not in the flesh, but in the spirit. If, that's a condition, if indeed the spirit of Elohim dwells in you. And if anyone does not have the spirit of Messiah, this one is not his. Okay, so if anyone does not have the spirit of Messiah, this one is not his. Now, Romans chapter 8, verse 10 to 11. And if Messiah is in you, if the body is truly dead on account of sin, but the spirit is life on account of righteousness. And if the spirit of him who raised Yeshua from the dead dwells in you, so he's speaking about the spirit of the Father here, he, the Father, who raised Messiah from the dead, shall also give life to your mortal bodies, through his spirit dwelling in you. The spirit dwells in you now. It dwells in me now. But it is in the future that Yahweh shall give life to our mortal bodies. The bodies we are in are fleshly bodies. They are mortal. But the Spirit of Yahweh is in us. That's why we are so exceptional for Yahweh. The Spirit of Yahweh is already dwelling in us now. But the Spirit did not change our body yet. For the moment, the Spirit of Yahweh is in a mortal body. But in the future, he shall also give life to your mortal bodies. He shall, future tense. It's not the case yet. That's why people still die. So when that happens, then and only then shall we definitively be saved. So for the moment, it's not the case. But everything depends on what we do now, in the present. It's what we do now which defines the future. If we don't work for our salvation, we are dead. Let's be clear with that. If we work for our salvation, we are saved as long as we work on it. And I want to be clear with that. As long as we work to our salvation, we are safe. For a moment. So this whole point of salvation is a pattern, followed many times by Yahweh in the scriptures. And one of those patterns is visible with the people of Yahweh saved from Egypt, for instance. You can see it there also. The same as Noah. You can see it with the people out of Egypt. By the way, you can see it with Abraham. You can see it with Rebekah. All those stories are there to speak about salvation, repentance, etc. They are there to teach us a lesson. Remember what Paul says in 1 Corinthians chapter 10? What happened to them is there to serve us as an example. So the point is that Yahweh had pity on Israel. Let's take the example of Israel. In Egypt, Yahweh had pity on Israel and showed them his favor by saving them from their past life as slaves in Egypt. And he is the one doing that work, not them. They did not free themselves. Yahweh freed them from Egypt. They found grace in his eyes. He had compassion to them. So once they were freed from their past life as slaves, now you remember they were free, they went out, the hand above their head to show joy. They were freed. They were freed, but they were not yet out of Egypt. They were freed from slavery. Okay, but they were still in the land. Israel has to flee from Egypt. So Yahweh freed them from slavery, but they are still in Egypt. Now they have to flee Egypt itself, and that's their job. Yahweh will not do it for them. They have to flee Egypt. Yahweh did his part with all those wonders, signs, until even the firstborn of the Egypt died. That's the work of Yahweh. It's not the work of Moshe, by the way. It's the work of Yahweh through Moshe, but it is the work of Yahweh. Yahweh did the work to free Israel for the past. Now that they are freed from the past, now that they're freed from slavery, Pharaoh said, okay, now you go out. Israel had to flee from Egypt, and they had 1 day to do it. Yahweh opened the window close. So in their present, put yourself in their position, in their present, they had to work their salvation. They had to walk with Yahweh. Remember, Yahweh was in front of them. They had to follow, but they had to do it. Yahweh did not do it for them. Yahweh was there to lead the way, but they had to walk following Yahweh. Once they walked down, they would reach their final destinations where they would be completely saved, which is the land of Yahweh, the land given to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Okay? So that pattern is also visible the first time Yahweh used grace, belief, and works together to save someone. And that first time is what we are seeing now. That first time is, as a matter of fact, with Noah. So we come back to Noah. So that whole pattern about Israel, Abraham, begins with Noah. Noah is the first example of salvation and grace at work. What Yahweh did before, what Noah had to do in the present, and the result. All in the story of Noah, you will find that salvation at work. Now let's go to Hebrews chapter 6, verse 7. By belief, Noah, having been warned of what was yet unseen, having feared, prepared an ark to save his house, through which he condemned the world and became heir of the righteousness which is according to belief. Everything is here. Everything is here. By belief. He prepared an ark. He worked. So that's a work. Preparing an ark is a working. He built a boat. To save his house, salvation. He condemned the world, judgment, and righteousness. So you have work of righteousness according to belief. So by belief, Noah, having been warned of what was yet unseen, having feared, prepared an ark to save his house, through which he condemned the world and became heir of the righteousness which is according to belief. That's the whole example of Noah. That's what we are seeing now. Everything is there in the story of Noah. Grace. He has been saved through grace. Then once he has been saved through the grace of Yahweh, favor has been shown to him. Now Yahweh gives him instructions to follow, to save himself and his family. He had to work to his own salvation. How? By building the boat. In the boat, he goes inside. He is protected from the outside world, from everything which will happen around, to reach the other side. And when he reaches the other side, it's a new world. The old world has been destroyed. Okay? And the old world is our old life. The same image. The old world in which Noah lived is our own old life. When you reach the other side, it's a new life. Like us, it's a new life. It's an image of baptism also, the flood. You find the pattern repeating again and again and again in the scriptures, Yahweh always repeat himself. The same pattern. Different stories, same pattern all the time. So we clearly see here with Noah, as the nose in the middle of the face, that Noah had to work to save himself and his house. We read it in Hebrew. Yahweh did not do it for him. If he did not work the ark, he would be dead also. So Genesis 6:8, Noah found favor in the eyes of Yahweh. Okay? Genesis 6:9, and this is the genealogy of Noah. Noah was a righteous man, perfect in his generation. Noah walked with Elohim. Important, Noah walked with Elohim, walking with Yahweh. He walked with Elohim. He obeyed Yahweh. He obeyed the word of Yahweh. He was a righteous man. Righteous, by the way, in those days there was no sacrificial system in place. There was no Levitical system in place. So, and he was already righteous. Why? Because he already obeyed the word of Yahweh. The word of Yahweh is not something which is necessarily bound to the sacrifice. The instructions of Yahweh has been given to Adam in the first place. Now, righteousness is defined by the instructions of Yahweh. It's just that in Sinai, Yahweh gave the instructions that everyone knew in a written form. Why? Because that Torah, written Torah, was the constitution of the nation of Israel. Because the job of Israel was supposed to spread that instructions for the Gentiles to follow and to come to Yahweh. They didn't do that job, but it was supposed to be their job. And the best way to do it is by writing it down to be able to present it to the people. They didn't do their job, but they will do in the future. So, two things here. Noah found favor because he was a righteous man and he walked with Elohim in his generation. So, he has a wicked generation, but he already walked in righteousness. Genesis 6, verse 11 to 14. And the earth was corrupt, so you will see the condition of the earth before Elohim. And the earth was filled with violence. And Elohim looked upon the earth and saw that it was corrupt. That's our world today also. For all flesh had corrupted their way on the earth. And Elohim said to Noah, the end of all flesh has come before me. For the earth is filled with violence through them, and see, I am going to destroy them from the earth. Make yourself an ark. That's an order. Make yourself an ark of gopher wood. Make rooms in the ark and cover it inside and outside with tar. And Noah did according to all that Elohim commanded him, so he did. So, it is clear that Yahweh wanted to save Noah from the past, wicked generation. He showed his grace to Noah by giving him a plan of salvation. An ark he had to work on. He had to do it. To be saved, Noah had to build the ark. After all, he could have said, I believe in you. You can protect me where I am, so I don't have to build anything. But he did not. He did what Yahweh asked him to do. And that's what Yahweh asks us to do also. So Noah, in his own present time, worked to his own salvation by building the ark. That work made it possible for him to go through the flood. This ark will lead him in his future to another place where he and his family will be definitively safe. And that's what happened. After the flood, he was saved. He was the only guy with his sons. He was the righteous man. And Elohim spoke to Noah in Genesis 8, verse 15. And Elohim spoke to Noah, saying, go out of the ark, you and your wife and your sons and your sons' wives with you. So, once on the other side, Noah was in a new world. Completely clean and pure, the past had disappeared. He was fully saved then. And that's what Yahweh wants to do with us. So the story of Noah is a story of salvation and the process of salvation. In every case, there is a three-part process of that salvation, and I will close with that. You have the past. We have been saved. That is the gift of Yahweh. It is the favor of Yahweh to us, and it is the work of Yahweh, not our work. Then you have the present. We are being saved. That's a process. This is our daily job. We work to our own salvation. And then you have the future, the result of that. We shall be saved. It is the future result of both the grace of Yahweh and our job following the plan in our present. We do that, then we shall be saved. Finally, we shall be free, living in a kingdom of peace and harmony and joy and love. But we have to work to our own salvation now by doing works of righteousness. We have to be righteous like Noah, who found grace, like Abraham, who found grace, like all those people. They were righteous people, dear brothers and sisters. They were righteous people. And righteousness is defined by the word of Yahweh, called today under the word Torah, which means instructions. So we have to follow those. We follow those and we will be saved. So I thank you for listening to this show today. And next time we'll continue with this time with the next patriarchs, which is Abraham, and there we will see the story of repentance, what repentance is all about. Okay, so stay tuned for next time, and stay tuned for the next message of Elder Ibanez. So I thank you for listening to this radio show. Thank you to Radio Kai and the technician for making this show possible. Yahweh bless you all which are listening, you and your family, and give you peace and deliverance if you have sickness.
Thank you, dear friends, for listening to this show. Yahweh bless all of you in Yeshua the Messiah. Until next time, this is Elder Joel Peters. Peace be with you. Shalom.